PaRaDiSism, independent democracy, and the democratic republican duocracy. Duocracy has a chokehold on democracy, can hardly breathe. American duocracy, governing based on the Democratic and Republican parties, is ending the democracy of a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Power corrupts, and the power of a duocracy, alternating in power, equally corrupts almost absolutely. It turns out that the Democratic and Republican duocratic parties are duopolizing the will of the people with the complicity of education, the state, the news media, and a quid pro status quo misguided civil society. Alternating at the helm of power is just a mirage of change to take turns at the spoils. Broken is sugar-coated for being corrupt. Likewise, nor are the candidates themselves from these parties guilt-free, for they, being free to choose the independent path of democracy, with premeditation, deceit, and advantage, sacrifice their principles, choosing instead the easy and corrupt path of duocracy. On the one hand, they say they're fighting for democracy, while on the other hand, they embrace the hegemony of the decadent Democratic and Republican parties. Don't be forked-tongued. Practice what you preach. Walk the talk. It must be done as said, and then not have to silence what is done. The ends pursued must be reflected and not contradicted in the means used to achieve the objectives. Now, let's start a brief hermeneutical reflection before continuing with the political discourse. The problem of why there is poverty amongst so much wealth, in addition to the vulgar corruption enforced by all no one, is due to a deeper cultural decomposition that corresponds to the crisis of civilization. If the problem in our midst is dualism, then we will have to go back 3,000 years to find the solution in the creation story at time equals zero. The master key of life is at the beginning of the beginning, at the beginning. That is, it is found in the first word of the book of creation, Genesis, together with the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, in Genesis 1:1a Aleph. The solution to all the problems of humanity is in Aleph Bereshit, in beginning of, same solution that is represented by the acronym PaRaDiS. Now, let's take it by parts, for ultimately all roads lead to Rome. There's a place for everything, with everything in its place, and there's a silver lining to everything as well. Let's not beat around the bush, fighting the symptoms of duocracy in society. Time is better spent addressing the character of dualism. When going through troubled times, it is necessary to address the cause of origin. The European thinkers Descartes, Newton, and Kant were preceded by the Greeks, Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates, and these in turn by the pre-Socratics, Thales, Parmenides, and Pythagoras. But before all these illustrious thinkers came Moses of the Pentateuch, of the sacred writings of Revelation, of the 5 books of the Bible. In my understanding of things, hermeneutics is the resultant of European world science, Greek philosophy, Aztec universal symbolism, and Spanish Jewish Kabbalah. This seemingly thorny theme is really very simple, and I will try to explain it with toy triangles, sweet oranges, and sand piles. Well then, if there was creation, there must be a force of creator, and science confirms this through the Big Bang of the cosmos some 13 billion years ago. In addition, if there was one creator, then the creator is one. Furthermore, if there is unity in the creator as whole, there must also be unity in creation, and this in its own way as a triad composed of mass, space, and time. Therefore, by joining creation with creator, we now obtain the triad of creation and the whole of creator. To facilitate the explanation, we will now use letters to identify the triad of parts of creation and the whole one of creator, namely creation as a triad of mass P, space R, time D, and creator as one S. Then, by combining the simple kindergarten approach and the tricky creation story, we get something common sense like physical P, mental R, spiritual D, and divine S. Finally, if we again align creation and creator, we obtain the acronym PRDS. and for convenience sake, by adding some vowels to facilitate its pronunciation, we obtain the acronym PaRaDiS. In a nutshell, dualism is the problem, duocracy its social manifestation, paradise its solution, and Genesis 1:1a Aleph its exegetical Bible source. Well, let's go back to politics after this brief hermeneutical digression. I am determined to disseminate this humanitarian discovery of the master key of life, paradise. For this purpose, locally I'm running for the US Senate from Texas and globally for the Nobel Peace Prize. Later on in this same series, I will explain in greater detail my work proposal for a re-civilization of humanity. All we have to do is apply paradise to solve the social problems that afflict us. Therefore, in response to my call to pursue justice, I make the following solemn proclamation: that from now on, it will be universal community, catch-all, what is neither essentially public government nor private market. For this noble purpose, in an epoch driven by knowledge and in the absence of social equity, I propose to forge an alliance between the community and the university under the guidance of Anusim Kabbalah. My PaRaDiSism proposal stands on the shoulders of capitalism and socialism, harvesting the best of both and at the same time exceeding them by far. The Democratic and Republican duocratic parties of today have degenerated into extremism and are breaking up the integrity of the country. Progressive in the Democratic Party is code for democratic socialist, just as conservative in the Republican Party is code for Republican fascist. But weren't these Nazis and communists against whom we fought only recently in World War II and the Cold War, respectively? The Democratic and Republican duocratic parties, with their half-truth discourse, have built and have destroyed all the time. Cowardice in the face of change, half-truths demagoguery, and duocratic arrogance. We must avoid a potential civil war by denouncing and boycotting the Democratic and Republican duocratic primaries. In all, the triadic third cultural protagonist of universal community would be in charge of healthcare, education, justice, amongst others as catch-all of what is not essentially public government nor private market. It doesn't exist as yet, granted. We need to create it as soon as possible by forging an alliance of the university with the community as catch-all under the guidance of Anusim Kabbalah. And that, of course, based on the exegesis of Genesis 1:1a Aleph, that ultimately gives us the master key of life for everyday use as original common sense paradise. And with this, I bid farewell. The baby boomer generation opened with protest music in the 60s and now closes 6 decades afterwards with this hermeneutical proposal in the 20s. This is a relay race from the outgoing to the incoming X, Y, and Z generations. Long live America! That you do not have to lose your identity of origin, quite the contrary. Remain what you are, say Latinx, to be a good American. And I do not deny my mestizo cultural heritage, Hispanic, indigenous, Jewish, and Moorish, amongst many other traditions. Best wishes, Ricardo Turullols-Bonilla, Rick, and Giri Bless.